Greg Auman, Fox Sports. Greg, how are you?
I'm good, Rock. Thanks for having me on. Hope you're doing well.
Doing fantastic. Are you rested and ready for the season? Did you get enough rest, Greg?
I did. Yeah, it's not even rest. Yeah, it's just, summer, you kind of have the doldrums. There's really not that much happening in the NFL, really.
Right.
So, no, it's like that's the one time a year, whatever, 3-4 weeks from mid-June to mid-July, you don't even really have the expectation of things popping up. So, no, you're at that point where excited to get things started, excited to have things to write about. The summers are all rankings and lists and speculation and all that kind of stuff. So just the idea you have something that actually happens you can write about it makes our jobs easier.
So we're going to delve into it. We're all set. Chris Mathis has a question or two with the Buccaneers team. Here we go. I do want to ask you, though. We had that, Jon Gruden wants to do play-by-play, and he actually wants to do and is going to do a preseason game. And you broke the story that it is with Rondé Barber, and it will be a Buccaneer preseason game. You had it first. So can you tell our listeners that maybe didn't see your tweet or your social media report about Jon Gruden is going to do a game as a play-by-play announcer, Greg?
Yeah, I recall Kaufman actually had it probably everything but which game it was really. But when the Bucs only home preseason game is against the Chiefs, I think it's August 22nd. Chris Myers he's actually working for Fox Sports, covering the Freedom Race in D.C. So they needed somebody in the booth, and I don't know that it's going to be Gruden on play-by-play as much as him and Rondé just both being in the booth. Chatting it up, and obviously it's neat for him to get back in the booth and a chance to remind people how entertaining he is as a broadcaster. It's preseason, so it's not the most high-stakes thing in the world, but should be fun to hear what Coach Gruden has to say and kind of add some interest to what's otherwise not the most important thing in the world, these preseason games we have.
Right. No, it will be, and I'm sure everybody's going to tune in just to see how he does, and he's been friends with Rondé, so that makes perfect sense. And I thought that it was probably Chris Myers had something to do with Fox. He does NASCAR, and that makes perfect sense. We have a question. Chris Mathis, why don't we throw – go ahead. You wanted to say anything else? Did I interrupt you there? Are
No,
you good?
No, go ahead. No. I meant welcome to have a question from Chris.
All right, here we go. So Chris Mathis started off because that was our topic today, and let's see what Greg thinks.
Yeah, as far as a player, a Bucs player that's been flying under the radar heading into 2026, like a name of a guy who's very pivotal to this team's success, maybe not getting talked about a lot. And for me, that's Chris Godwin. Should he be healthy, I think he's due for a solid season here in year 10, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, he's definitely an absolute name you can mention that way. And, Chris, obviously, the last 2 years has kind of been limited by injury. But to see him, in limited doses this summer, it looks like he's back to himself. This is his first chance to be an absolute number one and not be in the shadow of Mike Evans and show what he can do. You think about the first half of 24, which is the last time he was full go, was just, one of the NFL's best receivers. So, I think their receiving core, as hard as it is to think about them without Mike Evans, if they're all healthy, the group could certainly be better than it was last year. To get year 2 out of Emeka Egbuka, to have Jalen McMillan back healthy much the same way. You add Ted Hurst to the mix, Tez Johnson. Those are probably the top 5. So you don't have the Pro Bowl, the absolute star that Mike Evans was. But I think 1 to 5, there's not too many rooms you'd feel better about the depth of the group than what the Bucs have. If I had to volunteer a name, Godwin is a really good name for that. I think Kalijah Kancey is somebody that nobody is really talking about. Again, so much of last year and the struggles up front with pressure is just not having him. And obviously that's been a theme in his years in Tampa. Him being healthy is a game changer for their defensive front. So you think about, obviously we talk a lot about adding Reuben Bain and adding Alex Anzalone and adding Josiah Trotter and adding Eshaun Robinson. But, Kancey is also a guy you can think of as them adding in that he was there so little last season. If he's healthy, if he's playing 17 games, that's a difference maker up front for their defense.
That's a good one. That is a real good one. And then on the back end, I threw out Antoine Winfield Jr. It wasn't that long ago. He was the best safety in all the NFL. He had the injuries. He started playing better at the end, last year. I know Jeremy Fowler, ESPN, he has him as the 7th best at his spot. I think that and he seems to be healthy. He should be in his prime. I got Antoine Winfield Jr. I think they need him. They need him to have a big year. Tyke as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think obviously with the defense, what it was last year, I think Antoine had to cover a lot more things. So, if
Oh,
everything around him is working and doing what it's supposed to do, then you can start freelancing him more. Then you can blitz him. Then you can get him into the backfield. He definitely has been limited by injuries. I think last year was probably the step back to being who he was the year he got paid, the year he got set up with a $20 million contract. So the Bucs secondary, you think about all the changes up front. Secondary is basically the same. If anything, it's a little bit less. I mean, you lose Jamel Dean, you add Keontae Scott. I think they're counting on the idea that if the front of the defense is markedly better, and they're healthy in the secondary, they'll be what they want. But it's definitely counting on Tyke and Antoine in the back there on the kind of the last line of the defense, being the guys they need them to be. Those are two guys that are leaders on this defense now, and they just have to do it on the field as playmakers as well.
this is Greg Auman with Fox Sports, joining us on the Central Florida Behavioral Health Network, DAE Hotline. You can always learn more at cfbhn.org. What do you think about the Vita Vea situation? He was a hold-in. He wants a new deal. He did show up to voluntary minicamp, but he was just on the sidelines. How do you see this one? What's your gut feeling? Are the Buccaneers going to give him a new deal, or do you think they just let him play out his final year, Greg?
Yeah, I'll be curious to see, and that's probably a more, I don't want to say inflammatory, but a more serious situation short term than Baker Mayfield. Baker Mayfield's going to play this year no matter what. He said it. They can franchise him in 27 if they want to. Vita Vea is a little more openly unhappy with this deal. I mean, I think he literally has the longest defensive contract, I think, in the NFL in terms of guys that are still playing on the current deals, and it's one of those where the deal made a lot of sense when he signed it. I think most long-term contracts these days, if you get to the last year of a contract and you're playing well, there's an expectation or a hope that you get a new deal. Now, what complicates that is Vita Vea is 31 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So this is one of those where you don't want to pay somebody for who they've been if you're not sure that's who they're going to be. I think their defense has been built around Vita Vea since before the Super Bowl, So the excitement that they have about their defensive front is all people they're putting in around Vita Vea. So the big question will be whether he doesn't report for camp. That would be the most you can weaponize the frustration, is to not show up and to create headlines and create uncertainty in that defensive front. I don't know if he'll do that. I don't think, there was some talk that maybe you just sweeten this deal and instead of 17, 18 million a year, you give him a little bit of a raise, you add some incentives. I don't think that's going to cut it. I don't think it's going to placate him or his agent. I think they want a new deal. I think they want better money. You see, Jeffrey Simmons is getting $35 million a year. And I think Jeffrey Simmons is younger and probably better long-term than Vita Vea is. But Vita Vea has been, again, an absolute constant in the middle of the defensive front for whatever it is, 8-9 years now. So he has every right to expect to make more than $18 million a year. It's just a matter of whether the Bucs, they've got probably 4 key free agents they have to think about in Mayfield, in Vea, and then in 2 young guys in Yaya Diaby and Cody Mauk. And they're all going to be free agents. You don't want to keep a 31-year-old you like at the expense of a 25-year-old you like. So they have to decide if paying Vita Vea what he deserves to be paid means you can't give Yaya Diaby $25 million a year. That's what he's going to command as a consistently productive young pass rusher that they like. So there'll be tough decisions. They can't keep all 4 of those probably, and it's just a matter of deciding which one you have to let walk and where you think you can get by without.
So you did mention just real quickly, Baker Mayfield. I believe that, the Bucs want him. He's their guy. Baker loves it here. He wants to be here. I think something will get done. And even if it doesn't before training camp starts, and Baker a couple of weeks ago said once camp starts, he's not going to do any more negotiations. He balls out anyway. We know how he got to where he is. He is a boy, and if you watch this quarterback on Netflix, you can see, oh my God. But I'll tell you what, Greg, we had on Brad Johnson a couple of weeks ago, and Brad was like, you know what? human nature, like he went through this, it does affect, like he is going to be thinking in the back of his mind, man, they didn't give me a deal. Or he is going to be checking in with his agent. He goes, that's just human nature. It would be better for all parties to get a new deal done before camp and everybody will be happy. What do you think will happen with Baker Mayfield here?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most likely outcome is to get a deal done. I don't know if it happens before camp or it happens after the season, but I think what Baker has to, I mean, one of these sides has to give a couple million is what has to happen for them to get a deal done. I don't think they're miles apart right now. He got a great raise on his next deal, is due a great raise again. $33 million is good money, but it's not what Baker Mayfield caliber quarterbacks make in this league. So he's probably really close. That franchise number is about $50 million right now for 27, and you can kind of use that as a starting point. I think the Bucs know they have that. Again, it's not the worst thing in the world to get stuck making $50 million for 1 year. I think Baker wants some financial stability. And these days, these mega quarterback deals are 4-year deals. It's probably more than $100 million guaranteed. So you understand why you want that. It's just a matter of whether it's worth taking a risk, the risk of injury, the risk of this season. There is a chance that things don't go the way they want this year. And if there's changes to head coach, there might be a desire to bring in a different quarterback. So you leave yourself vulnerable to that unlikely outcome if you don't sign a deal. Again, whether that gets done in the next, whatever we're talking about, 8-9 days now until training camp starts, I don't know.
That is interesting. So in other words, I didn't think the franchise tag with Baker Mayfield, I was like, nah, that is not going to happen. Do you think that is a possibility?
I think it would be the easy if they didn't sign him to a deal. I think it's one of those where if he's the same guy, let's say he's kind of the uneven player, great first half, not so great second half that he was this past year, they'd have a tough decision to make. If he's anything close to 24, they'd want to use that tag. You'd want to keep him at that price. The franchise tag is really inflexible from a cap standpoint. You take all of that $50 million this year, so that's not ideal. That makes it harder for you to work around keeping the talent around him. But again, they've been both sides have been really clear how much they like each other.
Right.
And I think it's just a matter of trying to find the value that makes him feel respected and rewarded, and lets the Bucs feel like they can still keep the people around him that they need to win.
Okay. Chris, jump in here, buddy.
Yeah, and you just alluded to Todd Bowles there, Greg. And my thing here regarding the future of Todd Bowles, still under contract. We all know Bucs fans, for the most part, have been a little disappointed in what he's been doing. A lot of that could have to do with the injuries. But at the end of the day, it's a production-based league. You got to go out there. You have to win football games. This season, would it be too little that if, let's say the Bucs, even if they win this division but they do not win a playoff game, could you see the Bucs moving off of Todd Bowles? Because if that is the case, this seems to be a common trend here. You can't really get over the hump, unfortunately, like we saw with Tony Dungy.
Yeah, you could. I don't know where their standard is. I mean, waiting a year to make that move, there's less guaranteed money you're having to pay a coach that's no longer coaching you. So I don't know. I mean, if they were to win the South, go to the playoffs, host a playoff game, and lose, I mean, again, are you losing to? There could be like a 13-win wild card team that comes into Tampa as a favorite and beats the Bucs. And I don't know if that's the most damning thing in the world if you lose to a team with a better record that was supposed to beat you. So now if that isn't the case, if they're the 3 seed and they host some 9-win wild card and get upset, yeah, maybe he's in trouble. I mean, I think to think of what he's done. Obviously, there was an entire conversation in the second half of last season about it. So he needs to have this team look nothing like the one that finished last season. They have to have a better record. It certainly would help him to win the division. And that's right there. That's the expectation. The odds makers have Tampa Bay as the team to beat. It's wide open enough that you're going to see all 4 teams picked by some people to win the NFC South. But for his future, I don't know where the Glazers are drawing a line. I would think if he wins the division and is hosting a playoff game, that's a great starting point for his expectations of being back for 2027. But it's hard to know. Like you said, Tony Dungy certainly had that run where it was sustained success that didn't extend deep into the playoffs. That's a great thing for this franchise if they can think that that's where they need to set the bar and can bring in a different coach that might do better.
And I do have one more to follow up here because last year offense was a little sluggish to start football games with Josh Grizzard, first-year play caller, the offensive coordinator of the Buccaneers. As far as your gut feeling, and I know you were able to keep up with the Atlanta Falcons last year relatively well with your job there at Fox Sports, Greg. Talk about Zach Robinson, and does your gut feeling tell you that he is a significant upgrade from Josh Grizzard?
I think it's easy to think of Zach Robinson as being closer to Liam Cohen than he is to Josh Grizzard, in that he's not a first-time play caller. He's done this before. He's done it in this division. He's done it in a very similar offense to what they had so much success with 2 years ago. That doesn't mean he can replicate that. It's a different team. But I think seeing what they did in Atlanta, having an offseason to adjust that to the talent you have here, there's every reason to have more confidence than you did a year ago. This is one of those where, it's whatever it is, 5 OCs in 5 years here. 2 of them have been so good they got head coaching jobs. 2 of them have been so bad they got fired. I think Zach Robinson, to look at his resume coming from the right tree, having some experience already, it seemed like he was a really good match for what they needed. And I haven't heard anything this summer to suggest otherwise. I think the initial reviews you get from players are excitement and seeing what he can, I think there was situations last year where Josh Grizzard got exposed a little bit as someone that hadn't done this before and didn't have all the answers. And I think the hope and the expectation is that Zach Robinson's relative experience edge can help him avoid those kind of pratfalls in this season.
All right, he's Greg Auman. He's Fox Sports. He's rested. He's ready for a long season. And if you follow him on social media, he responds, he engages. He's a lot better than I am on that. But no, Greg, we always appreciate it, and we look forward to seeing you over at One Buck real soon.
All right, man. See you soon, Rock. Thanks for having me on.
All righty, there we go. There we go. Interesting. What did you take out of that? What I took out of that is franchise tag with Baker Mayfield, and you mentioned that. I thought, there's no way they do that. If he's their guy, that's a possibility. And also, just giving Vita Vea a little bit more ain't going to get it done.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Vita Vea. Is he getting this from an Ndamukong Suh in his ear? What's this?
Yeah, maybe. That's the first that I've heard of the fact that it's not just going to be a little spice up to the contract. Ooh. He wants a new contract. The texter here just chimed in a few moments ago with the idea of extending Baker. What if you tag Vita Vea? Now, I don't know the numbers on that. I'll have to do a little bit of research, but you do need Vita Vea out there. So if that's what keeps him out there and you can't come to an agreement at this age for Vita Vea on a new 2 or 3 year deal, which I could kind of see happening based on his age.
Yep.
Why not slap the tag on him?
Okay, that's a possibility too. Bottom line for me, you got to have Baker Mayfield and you got to have Vita Vea in the middle of that defensive line. Him along with Kalijah Kancey, Ruben Bain, and Yaya Diaby on the outside. Bring it. And some new inside linebackers. I'm ready. But boy, Vita Vea, you better not be trying to break the bank.
Here's the deal. If you tag Vita Vea this year, $27 million. 27.
But boy, you need him. You stinking need him. All right, when we come back, we got more. Well, all right, that's all I can tell you. Who do we got? What do we got? Well, you got to keep it here on the Flamethrower. 95.7 FM, AM 6.